This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a fantasy football content creator who some people consider to be the funniest person to ever attend the Fantasy Football Expo. Just saying. From This Guy Sucks podcast, it's my pleasure to welcome Chuck Bass to the show. Welcome in, my man.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Yes, definitely all of my burners on Twitter are out there saying that about me, about the Expo. My little network of spies, they're pushing the propaganda pretty strong these days.
I'll never forget our first interaction. I was, we were in line for a beverage, and there's this guy, and then there's another guy with a camera, and I'm like, what is happening? It took me a while to realize this guy is phenomenal. This guy is hilarious. It's Chuck Bass, and so we spent the rest of that night, wandered in the streets of Canton, sure. And again, I won't forget it. It was a fun time for sure.
No, we hit it off immediately, and that's one of the funny things about the Expo is at any given point in time, anywhere in Canton, somebody is going, "What is happening right now?" And that's just one of the reasons we all get along so well.
Oh, for sure. Now, for listeners and viewers who might be unfamiliar with your work, share with them a little bit about your This Guy Sucks podcast and your YouTube channel.
Well, that's the other thing people say about me typically is this guy sucks. So it's one of the two. It's a mixed bag, one or the other. But no, I'm the host of This Guy Sucks, a little comedy fantasy football podcast I started a couple years ago, just trying to roast players, but I inadvertently just end up roasting myself and my terrible fantasy decisions most of the time. But you know what? You got to own it. You got to know who you are, know thyself. And it's led me to be on an award-winning fantasy football program such as yourself. And you did what, you did what anybody does after, they've made it big in their second season. You go bigger. The guests are bigger. They're full of more personality, all the good stuff. So you brought on myself, of course.
Of course. And then your YouTube channel, you have other things going on, right? Instead of, aside from This Guy Sucks. Talk to me about that.
Yes. So This Guy Sucks has been, the driving force. I'm the co-host of the TSS Dynasty Hour with some great guys over at the Dynasty TSS Network. I work with Dynasty DGens as well. I don't know how I found myself in two Dynasty programs when I just started playing Dynasty a couple years ago. I don't know if I've been, brainwashed or something like that, or I've just been hanging out with a rough crowd, but here I am.
I love it. Now, obviously, for someone who's creating content in sports, you have to, I guess it's safe to assume that you have a passion for sports. When did that all develop? When did you first fall in love with sports? Growing up in Tampa, of course.
Growing up in Tampa, of course, shout out the Bay. Got to give them their love. It was really more Stockholm syndrome than anything growing up as a Tampa sports fan between the Buccaneers, who were just a laughingstock for a long time, and the Rays, who have always been good, but have been, people look at the Rays with disdain. The Lightning have been, a great franchise, but really, we just kind of stumbled our way into success, into a couple Super Bowls here and there, some Stanley Cups. So it's been a fun ride. It's made me who I am because my guard is up all the time because of my sports teams that I happen to love. I also went to Auburn. So the rise of Nick Saban has been detrimental to my soul and my psyche as a sports fan, but he's gone. Better times are ahead, and we're on to greener pastures, I hope.
I love it. So who are your favorite players growing up across all sports?
Across all sports. Well, you know what? You know who I'm going to say first? Andre Agassi. Where's the Agassi love these days? The forgotten man. Big tennis guy. Yeah, a little bit. Agassi was the man growing up. My whole family's a big tennis family. But then, you get into the sports we're talking about. John Lynch, always loved. Keenan McCardell. Cadillac Williams, who inspired me to actually go to Auburn. His short but beautiful stint in Tampa Bay. Just some under-the-radar guys that make people know I have street cred.
So Cadillac Williams inspired you to go to Auburn. Like, seriously?
He did. He came down. I wasn't really sure what I was going to end up doing for college or anything like that, really. And then he came in. I was like, I had never even heard of really Auburn. My foray into SEC football at that time was the University of Kentucky, where a lot of my family's from. So Tim Couch, that whole era, Jared Lorenzen. Kind of wasn't too deep into the scene. And then Cadillac opened my eyes a little bit about this behemoth that is SEC football. And here we are.
That's awesome. That's funny. Unfamiliar with Auburn, that rings true to me. I was a tiny, tiny little kid, and I remember telling my mom, like there's this guy named Bo Jackson. He played at Auburn, and I live in a town where Auburn is like. I grew up in a town where Auburn was next to it, right in Washington State, a city called Auburn.
Yeah,
I actually live there
right,
now.
yeah.
I actually live there now, and I was telling my mom, like, Bo Jackson is in Auburn. So I was truly unfamiliar with Auburn University as well. That's funny.
Yeah, so you stumbled into it, which is similar to me. You just found your way. Bo Jackson is the ultimate trump card for anybody who's an Auburn fan. Is like, oh yeah, well we have Bo Jackson, and we'll always will.
How do you beat that? So are you excited as a Tampa Bay guy? Are you excited about Mike Evans, sealing the deal and returning home?
Never a doubt. And here's the one thing people always forget about these players, especially lifelong franchise guys, is how much they mean to the community, especially somebody who's already won, all the records. He got a Super Bowl ring. There's not much more incentive for him to leave other than maybe make a couple extra $1 million here or there. Us as sports fans, everybody's penciling him into the Chiefs, into the Bills. He is a foundational member of the Tampa Bay community. And it would bring me nothing but disdain to see him go to another team. So I appreciate him doing it for me.
I love it. And those Florida taxes are pretty good too, right?
Underrated. That really is something that a lot of these guys, why do all the free agents go to Florida and Texas? It's because of Tennessee. Why did DeAndre Hopkins go to Tennessee? It might have been a little bit of income tax thing.
For sure. Now, so as a sports fan, what was your biggest loss as a sports fan?
Well, as any true sports fan would say, they were both host jobs. I've got two of them, and they both sadly come as Auburn fans. So the 2014 national championship, Auburn, FSU. Who wants to lose to that Jameis Winston Florida State team? Just in a season that was truly special for us. We had the kick six, we had the prayer at Jordan Hare, we had all these memorable moments, and then for it to culminate in Jameis Winston throwing a touchdown over the middle. About 40 feet from me. I was there, sponsored by Bud Light, unofficially. A lot of good times that day.
I love it.
The other one I would say is the 2019 Final Four, where Auburn lost to Virginia. The guy double dribbled coming out of the break. Nobody called it. We get called for the foul, and I will never forget it for the rest of my life.
Devastating. So how about what's your all-time favorite sports moment?
The kick six. I can bring it back around. You asked the right questions. You let me end this little segment on the happier note, which is
exactly
just the greatest moment in Auburn sports history. The loudest I've ever heard any group of people ever be, just running the kick six back. My date, who was with me at the game, she broke her foot celebrating. We had to leave the game and take her to the hospital immediately. But guess what? We were there, baby. We were there for the good stuff.
You won.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah, I remember that. Sure. That was amazing. Yeah, that was what a walk off, right? Like that's incredible.
That's right. That's what we this thing we have with the Alabama fans. Obviously, they have all the accolades and all the stuff that a lot of teams wish they would, but we have the signature wins. We have the Cam Newton comeback. We have the kick six. We have Bo Nix, the reviled Bo Nix, forcing in too many men on the field and winning an Iron Bowl in a year where they would have won the national championship. We've got them in the bag. They can't beat us.
I love it. Rivalries. That's what it's all about for sure. So when did you first discover fantasy sports?
I probably have the only original answer to this question, which is one of my personal favorites. I went to a Christian middle school, and I was in detention one day after class or after school in detention. And I was supposed to be on a computer compiling Bible verses for a project. And instead, a web browser was open, and one of the defaults at the time was NFL.com. Being the kind of kid who's in detention at a Christian middle school, of course, I just followed the rabbit hole. And I find myself in a draft with complete randoms for free. Mark Bulger, Larry Johnson, Algie Crumpler, Ocho Cinco. and I win my fantasy football league against random strangers in 7th grade on an NFL Network website. And I have been addicted ever since, chasing that high.
That's the best answer I've ever heard. I love that. That's awesome. So in those early days of playing fantasy, do you remember consuming content? Do you remember some of the content creators you were most attracted to?
Those early days were pretty tough because I barely knew enough about the sport, let alone, the complexities of, yards per route run or anything like that. So I really relied on the major networks, your Matthew Berry's, maybe some Yahoo Fantasy, some CBS Fantasy, but everybody has to have that baseline, entry foray into the content world at some point. But it wasn't really until I started feeling like I was participating in the industry that I really took it to the next level, just like a lot of us do. My initial route was more, I wanted to understand the game. So I typically listened to a lot of NFL podcasts or NFL channels, like Bill Barnwell, the Ringer NFL show, the Athletic Football show. I kind of thought maybe I would get an edge on all of these players by knowing more about the game. Didn't help my fantasy skills much, but I'm not sure if I found the answer to that equation yet.
I love it. So when playing the game, like what is it about the fantasy football experience that you enjoy the most?
This is going to sound funny, but I think it's the lack of control over something that I invest so much of my time into. If I invested the same amount of time, I might have like an aerospace engineering degree or maybe contributing completely positively to a lot more people. Maybe I would have invented something. Instead, I put the same amount of time into finishing 3rd place in my home league. And how much better of a person does that make me? I can't speak to yet, but I know I'm having a good time.
It's a work in progress. I love it. So you do have a home league, one league that you consider your primary league?
I do. I've got, my base, maybe the 2 or 3 that I've been in the longest, but I do have one that I would call my home league. And it's been a good time. It's a good group of guys I went to school with. And then, you know what? It's a very detrimental league to my overall fantasy success because I had a 3-peat in it in the mid 2010s, 2014 to 2016, just a true blind luck run. But it might have been the worst thing that ever happened to me because every year I get more disappointed in my lack of success because I remember the good old days, and it's caused me to degenerate a little bit. And I feel like I'm looking to the stars for answers. Like, what happened? What was I eating that year? What was I drinking? What was my day-to-day habit? How did I find that success that I've not been able to replicate?
Those leagues can drive you crazy for sure. I get it. You guys do like live drafts? Is it a local league?
It was at the time. Sadly, it's a Zoom league now just because we've all kind of, branched out. We're taking over different parts of the country to the best of our abilities. But we do try to get together when we can because you just can't beat a live draft. It doesn't matter. It is always number one.
Yeah. So with live drafts, what are your favorite aspects of a live draft experience?
I love tearing people's picks down in real time and being able to see their reaction to you potentially offending them. You can't really offend them too much because it's just fantasy football, but I just love you can't fake a boo or a damn, somebody snipes your guy or, somebody makes a huge reach on somebody like that. It's just, it really replicates that feeling of being in a bar, maybe watching a live sporting event, only you've been researching this live event for 4 or 5 months.
I can see you of all people being an incredible heckler in a live draft setting. I love that. So obviously
it really doesn't matter. You really have to. It doesn't matter what the pick is. It doesn't matter how much I love the player. I'm in a second. I can convince myself that this is the single worst draft pick I've ever seen in my entire life. And it probably is.
It helps, get in their heads. I love it. It's a good strategy, right?
Yeah.
So obviously fantasy leagues can be fun. Do you have a favorite last place punishment idea? Maybe not something that you've done before, but something out there that you've seen that you think is pretty awesome.
This is my big frustration with the last place punishment in the fantasy football community is that the ideas are great and the implementation is never what you think it's going to be. It's always so much better on paper. And then when the actual execution comes, somebody's got some excuse, or, you know, maybe they do it their way. We had a pretty good one going for a while, where the last place Sacco guy had to attend a sporting event that we all knew they weren't going to like, and they had to sit behind the home team in away gear, usually something broadcasted so that we could all watch it on TV. But we had one guy who could not stop saccoing, and he had to attend 3 Atlanta Dream WNBA games in 4 years. No beer until the second half, so that we know that you've, you know, sat through it. But, you know, that's just the way we like to do things.
That's phenomenal. I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I know that you've done some quirky leagues. I was in a QB league only, a QB only league that you put together. Do you do a lot of like funny, quirky leagues, or was that just kind of like just a random idea that you came up with?
That one I like just because I like to explore what the limits of this, you know, hobby that we all have, hobby, job, love. It's a love for all of us, and how far can we take things? I love weird rules, and I have a little bone to pick with Scott Fish, because the Scott Fish Bowl 13 ruined how I'm going to be able to view fantasy going forward for the rest of time. Just because when you've got Kendrick Bourne dropping 30 points regularly, how am I supposed to go back to a half PPR, you know, league like that? 50-yard touchdown bonuses, give me those. 1 point per carry, check. Juice the stats. First down bonus, please bring it all on. High numbers.
Scoring points. That's the key. When it comes to settings, like are there things that you prefer?
Yeah, I am a traditionalist, and then I like to push the traditionalist rules. So I like single QB, I like half PPR, but then playing within those limits, you know, like I just piggybacking off of what we were just talking about. I probably looked like an idiot in 2 or 3 leagues this year, complaining like, guys, we shouldn't lose points for interceptions and fumbles. And my friends are like, what is wrong with you? What leagues are you playing in to where this is allowed?
I love it. So when you play in leagues, or when you put together leagues, are there certain strategies you implement to keep a league more active and engaged?
Yeah, I'd say my number one thing is, you know, who you're getting together. That's always important, is knowing your league and knowing, you know, who's going to contribute to it. But I mean, and this is nobody's fault, I carry the weight in most of my leagues for, you know, pushing different people to be, you know, maybe ribbing here or there, or calling people out, or maybe drawing on some ire, or sometimes uniting the rest of the league to be more active by having a crazy opinion or doing something stupid, just to kind of, you know, round the troops up, rile people up, whatever it takes, because that's why I play, is for the interaction, for the camaraderie. And if I happen to win, then, you know, props to me.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously I think that's the core part of this whole fantasy experience, is that, you know, engagement and having fun with your friends, your colleagues, your enemies, whatever it is. That's the key. So it's always important to be able to find some way to stoke the fires. And again, I imagine that you probably do a pretty good job with that. So when did you first when did you decide to start creating content? What inspired that decision?
So this one is nice too, because I can trace it back to the exact moment. And I think it was in 2021. I think I just snapped at one point. I don't know what was going on with my fantasy teams, but something pushed me over the edge. And I went back and looked at my home league roster the week before my first podcast came out. And it was Ravens, Deonta Foreman, Dolphins, Chase Edmonds, Kadarius Toney on the Giants, Dan Arnold on the Jaguars, Jeremy Nichols and Derek Gore in the starting lineup. And I can just tell, it's like looking at an old photo of yourself when you're going through like a depression or something like that, where you're like, wow, that poor guy back in 2021 was having some tough times. But a lot of that came from it. A lot of good content out there, but I didn't feel like enough of it was capturing the anger that I feel sometimes when I'm playing this game, the rage, the roasting of players and coaches and decisions. A lot of that's done well on Twitter or on Reddit, but as far as maybe vocalizing it and putting it out in the world, I felt like there was a niche that could be filled. And that's just when I kind of, just started getting on the grind.
And so that's what inspired you to create This Guy Sucks. Is that how long? When did that first come out?
I think I just tried to come up with a name that was maybe the most universally representative of the feeling I was trying to capture in fantasy football players, which is You're sitting there, you're watching Derek Carr drop back on 3rd and 7, and he checks it down, and you just go, this guy sucks. And whether that's true or not about Derek Carr, I'm not saying it is, although it is a universal feeling that I know we all have about a player, no matter if he's first team all pro or if he's coming in off the bench. You feel it at certain times.
And I can see it. It's a good balance to me because like your sense of humor, it makes it all make sense, right? Like it's not just a show where you're, where it's just pure hatred, right? Like you have a fun time with it, and when listeners and viewers can see that it's humor based and comedy centric, I think it makes all the difference. So what?
Really
so basically, So you started that podcast. Obviously, you've gotten involved in with other brands. Talk to me about like what you're doing now, like what you've done in this last couple of years here.
So started with a podcast, and I kind of wanted to see, the traction of that and, how much of an audience and opportunity there really was for that. But just like any industry, it really is about who you know. So I wanted to familiarize myself with a lot of people that I currently had really not interacted that much. And that is just an endless pit of, enjoyment. There's just so many unbelievable content creators out there, so many people doing good work, so many people that are happy to help. I really have just kind of been blown away by the collaborative effort of the community and how much people really are willing to either extend an open hand or check out or give you notes or have you on a show. And really the genesis of that came from my first fantasy football expo, which was in 2022. I kind of went in blind. We got a booth, just trying to spread the name, but also have some fun. And it turned out that everybody there was just having the best time, chatting it up, cutting it up, making jokes, getting to know each other. And I was just like, wow, you don't get this from Twitter. You don't get this from Reddit. But once you have that kind of initial personal, physical, interaction with people, it changes the entire complexion of these internet and social platforms that we use, and it expands them and it makes them better. It makes your ability to pop on a podcast feel more organic, or your ability to write a blurb for an up and coming blog site feel more like I'd love to do this and not sure, and that's something that I'm finding a lot of passion with.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more special than the expo experience. Are you going back this year? I'm assuming you are.
I'm trying.
I'm
expecting my first little one here in 2 months. So
congratulations.
Thank you very much. My wife knows how much going to something like the expo means to me, and I know how much it would mean to her for me not to. So I'm wheel spinning on that one. We'll see. Hopefully
that's the case. So what's been the biggest challenge you've had thus far with content creation in this space?
I would say the biggest challenge I've had is consistency throughout the year. It's really easy when the season's going on to ride the wave. You're being provided with fresh, pulpy content daily, whether it's through the games, whether it's through news stories, whether it's through things happening in the fantasy football community. It's a big party, right? But once the Super Bowl is over and you have that stretch from February all the way through maybe even July, when the redraft players start to come back, you have to stay motivated and you have to stay on the grind, just like you would. I mean, it's like if you have a regular job, which I do, I don't get to just, pull off the gas in March and April. I have to show up and have the motivation. So finding ways to find passion in, little news stories, pre-combine, post-combine, just allows you to be a little bit more engaged.
Yeah, for sure. And it is a fun time of year as long as you're, take it in for what it is. I think obviously the combine's a good time. We just wrapped that up. Looking ahead to the draft, are there certain players that you're excited to see where they land in the 2024 class? I guess, can you name a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end that you're really excited to see get into the NFL?
Sure. I can't even believe I have to say this, but it feels needed to be said. Caleb Williams is one of the best rookie prospects of all time. So everybody just relax, okay? Everybody relax. This guy is tier 1. He's going to be great. That's not my pick for this, but I just can't believe I have to say that.
It's fascinating.
It really is fascinating.
It is.
People are
It
bored.
really is. Yeah.
They're bored. I get it. You look into Caleb Williams' stats, they're hardly down from his Heisman year, and his team was significantly worse. So people are they're going crazy. But to tie it back to Auburn, sadly and selfishly, I'm excited for what's going to happen with Bo Nix. I don't envision a long, steady starting career for him. But watching him grow from kind of the wild coyote he was at Auburn to the Heisman candidate he was at Oregon makes me think with the right team, with proper coaching, he could have that kind of spicy Ryan Fitzpatrick backup bridge quarterback type of career. So excited for him. Excited for Trey Benson, running back coming out of Florida State. Give me all the big, super fast guys that don't have a ton of mileage. He's got half the usage in college that some of his peers like Blake Corum and Braylon Allen do. So love him coming out too.
How about a wide receiver and a tight end?
Give me all the Rome Odunze. Give me him for life. He has got an aura about him. All the metrics are great. The college production is great. And you're going to be able to get a guy that I think is going to end up being in that upper elite tier, but he just happens to be in a class with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. So he gets to slide down. So these people that didn't trade their 2024 middle and late round picks are going to potentially get an elite player. Absolutely love him. And I'm going to go against conventional wisdom in this one and say, I love Brock Bowers, and I think he will live up to the hype. And I know that's like the most chalk answer ever. Everyone's like, duh, he's going to be good. No, I think he's going to be upper tier elite off of the rip, regardless of what team drafts him. I've completely changed my tune on this. It's time one of these tight ends in the first round hits. This is the guy to do it.
Brock Bowers. He should find a spot, a team that will use him appropriately too. I think someone's gonna get him at a high spot because they want to use him and get some production.
Do you have an ideal landing spot for him? Do you have a team that you look at and go, please?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Chargers would be excellent. Sure. I would prefer the Chargers take Odunze or Neighbors. Sure. But I think that Bowers in LA, I want to say San Diego because I can't let that go.
I do that all the time too.
But I think the Chargers will be a fantastic fit.
What about LA, but not the Chargers?
Now that would be phenomenal too. I mean, I like that. I would prefer him obviously paired up with a younger quarterback. Stafford is one of those guys where he's he played well last year, much better than he did in the previous year. Previous season, but how much longer is he going to play, right? And then what happens, when they turn that around? It's not easy finding a franchise quarterback. So, I hate to see a young talent like that, like find themselves in a situation where they lose a quarterback in a year or two, and they're being replaced by, who knows?
Yeah, that really stunts the learning curve for a lot of these young tight ends, especially the ones that are drafted early in the first round, because typically those teams either don't have stability at quarterback or at the offensive play calling position. So that's why you don't see a lot of these guys boom until either they're on another team or 5-6 years into their career. It's a tough go for the young tight ends.
For sure. All right. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it's a fun time of year. You got the full season ahead. I'm looking forward to it. So in 2024, are there any players, just normal redraft that you're just excited to jump ADP and acquire?
I am
outside of the rookie class, essentially.
Of course. And our cup is about to really overflow for this 2024 redraft season. There's so many good players in good positions. There's so many good players coming back from injury that people have kind of forgotten about who will have a nice underinflated ADP, deflated, underinflated. What am I talking about? Anthony Richardson is the first one. Colts quarterback, absolute dreamboat. Whether they sign Michael Pittman back or not, it does not matter to me. His production is going to come in a multitude of ways. I love the offense there. I love the head coach. I just like the team that they're building. So I'm excited to see what their free agency, what their draft looks like. Running back, David Montgomery. I love the guys that are not ready to go away yet. Everybody is, for understandable reasons, head over heels in love with Jahmyr Gibbs. I cannot get this guy in a dynasty draft to save my life. I have joined 3 or 4 just to get him, and every single time I get sniped. So money's coming out of my pocket because of you all, and it's driving me nuts. But Montgomery isn't going anywhere. He is about to just rake in another, maybe 900 yard, 11, 12 touchdown season. People are going to be frustrated, understandably. That's just how this goes. Wide receiver, Nico Collins. Love Nico Collins. I think he's a true alpha number one. He moves so well for a big guy. Stroud, obviously, don't even need to talk about him. Tank Dell is going to be coming back from injury. They have an established guy there, and very few of these, young up-and-coming quarterbacks have that strong, established guy. So I love that. And then rounded out, tight end, Evan Ingram. Everybody wants the young, new tight ends. They want the Trey McBrides. They want the Sam Laportas. And I get that. Give me Evan Ingram. Give me him at that mid ADP that he's going to have. The Jaguars, they don't have a lot they can rely on consistently, except for the guy who had the most targets in the league last year at the position. Give me some Evan Ingram.
There you go. Great values for sure. And it's only March. So I look forward to this whole off season. I can't wait till the season rolls around, but you gotta enjoy the ride while it's here. Now let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just throw out some questions.
Please.
You just let me know the first things that come to mind. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing in the industry right now?
Wow, that's such a great question. What do I love most about what I'm doing in the industry? I think I just like to make people relax a little bit, whether it's through a cheap laugh or a really unusual point of view that kind of gets you going, huh? What did he say? I've gotten to the point where I hear a lot of people say they can't tell if I'm joking or not. And that brings me back to a great Andy Warhol quote where he said, art is getting away with it. And I think that's where I'm having the most fun, where I can maybe say some things that are a little bit head turny, but they're not, I'm not going for Skip Bayless or Emmanuel Acho crazy. I'm just going for kind of quirky and kind of like interesting, and something that you're thinking about while you're falling asleep. You're like, wait a minute. Yeah. So I'm having fun in that lane.
I love it. I assume that you're being funny first, and then I interpret the information.
Yes. It's all about the delivery. All about the delivery.
I love it. Well, when it comes to NFL running back duos and tandems, what's the best Thunder and Lightning duo of all time?
Oh my gosh, the best Thunder and Lightning duo of all time. I don't know if this is just what happens when you get to a certain age or not, but I always am going to remember Chris Johnson, and who was the other guy? Was it Londale White, the running back?
Is it Londale White?
Londale White and Chris Johnson will always be the preeminent Thunder and Lightning for me. And I don't know if it's because Chris Johnson was such a damn good Lightning, or if it was because that they were both just worked so well together. But that was kind of the early days of that exotic smash mouth that Tennessee was semi-famous for. So I'll go with them.
Okay, it's a good answer, but it's the wrong answer. You're supposed to say Mike Alstott and Warwick Dunn.
Oh no, because to me that's Thunder and Thunder, or Typhoon and Typhoon.
Warwick Dunn's a tiny little guy. I mean, he's lightning, right? No,
I know, but he was, but I just remember him. He was such a good tackle breaker. He wasn't bowling over guys, but he was so good at making that first guy miss that I just always associated those teams with so much toughness, which they did have.
Okay.
Yeah,
good duo for sure. Wherever they land on that ranking.
Man, I just got my Buccaneers card revoked on live television right now. I can't believe it.
Well, here, I'll set you up for this one. What's the best throwback jersey in NFL history?
Oh, I can't believe I'm not wearing it. I've got 4 creamsicle jerseys literally directly above me right now.
It's the wrong answer. It's the wrong answer. It's the Seahawks. It's the Seahawks.
Oh my God, I do love the Seahawks.
That's the right answer.
You guys do have it going on. I do.
No, creamsicle is pretty special.
I have such a soft spot in my heart. One of the last NFL road games I attended was in Seattle in 2019, and I was blown away by how many of those jerseys I saw. I was like, they get down out here. They're having a good time.
Good times for sure. But yeah, no, that creamsicle, I've seen that All-Stat jersey on you. I mean, that's pretty sick, pretty sick.
It's pretty worn in.
I bet. You got to get another one ordered for sure. What are your thoughts on trade vetoes in fantasy leagues?
Oh my gosh, absolutely disgusting. I'm a fan of dictatorships when it comes to this. Let the commissioner run the show. This is where having a good commissioner is key. All right. Let the trade go through. And then if it's shenanigans, let him come in with the KGB or whatever he needs to do, whatever powers he has, and let him Putin the situation up a little bit. Power to the commissioners. Underrated aspect of the fantasy football community. I salute all of you. I understand the plight. Keep it going.
No, that's the right answer. That's the right answer. Can you
Yes, there is a right
name
answer.
one? Yeah. Can you name one person that you'd love to watch a game with just to see their perspective on it?
Now, I thought this was a great question because you could approach this one from so many different angles. I have two, and I'll make them quick hitters. One would be I would love to watch them with an elite diva wide receiver. So Michael Irvin, Ocho Cinco, somebody who can break down the game with intense detail, but also colorfully overstep their bounds and destroy what the offensive players aren't doing right. That's what I need. That way I can come back to my couch with my dog and my wife, and I can point to the screen and go, look at this. You see how he broke off his route early? That's bull. That's bull crap.
That's good. Yeah, someone that's unafraid to say, to be honest, essentially,
Sure.
right?
Of course. And the second is the lady from the Jardiance commercials. That would be my my obvious number two.
Of course.
Gotta be.
What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of sports?
This one's always funny to me because it's always the ones that the guys who are like, oh, you're a fantasy guy. I bet you do this, this, and this. And I'm always like, when you're in an argument with somebody on Twitter, and I'm always like, yeah, that's pretty much my life. I play a lot of VR. I walk my dog a lot. I go to a lot of music festivals, play a lot of kickball, all of the things that, somebody would say, you don't know ball. I just have to go, well, yeah, pretty much.
I love that. What are your favorite podcasts, non-football related?
Non-football related. Great question. This is where a lot of what goes into my podcast. This is where I get a lot of my inspiration from. I love the Bill Burr podcast. I love the Anthony Jeselnik and Greg Rosenthal Vanity Project. I love that. The Tim Dillon Show. And then I listen to a lot of, funny comedy improv podcast, Comedy Bang Bang, The Neighborhood Listen. Just, I spend so much of my day in football, in fantasy football, in content creation. I love to just get out and laugh and have people, just kind of semi-inspire, the kind of vibe I want to bring to my stuff.
That's great. Do you have an all-time favorite TV show?
An all-time favorite television show. I would say comedy-wise, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia has been a detrimental and pivotal show in my entire life. It affects the way I talk to people. It affects the way I look at the world. Not a lot for the better, but I do love it. And then drama, I have to go with The Leftovers. What I will say is the best show that HBO has ever produced. I think it's better than The Sopranos. I think it's better than Succession, better than Curb. Give me The Leftovers. Give it to me all day.
Nice. How about an all-time favorite movie?
This is a tough one. I always find this one tough. My go-to is typically Happy Gilmore, but I think under the right circumstances, I might be able to talk into saying Jaws. Something about Jaws just gets me. I don't know if it's classic Spielberg. I don't know if it's just, the one of the most well-made movies of all time. It's just, you don't hear a lot of people my age say Jaws, and maybe that's part of it too.
You got to go against the norm. How about an all-time favorite sports movie?
Now, this one I do have a great one for. I love 7 Days in Hell or Tour de Pharmacy, which are the HBO Andy Samberg kind of mockumentary movies. They are two of the funniest programs you will ever see. One of them's about a fake tennis match at Wimbledon, and the other's about a bunch of drugged up bikers on the Tour de France. And they are both some of the funniest comedies you will ever watch. Could not recommend them both enough.
That's awesome. I think that fits your brand. I love it. Do you have a favorite musician or band or artist?
I always have a go-to 5, and that's a theme of this. You can tell I cannot ever just give you one. That's part of how I am. Kid Cudi, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Passion Pit, Rufus Du Sol, and the Beatles. I like to hit all the cycle right there.
You just knocked it out of the park. I love it. What's your favorite food while watching football?
My favorite food while watching football. God, that's a great question. I usually just drink, and that's because it's like a nervous tick for me. And I don't just mean alcohol. I mean water, coffee, tea, Celsius. I will have obviously, some drinks in there. My go-to food, wings. Who's not out there grubbing wings down while the game is on? It's like a perfect nervous food to eat. You can just take chomp after chomp after chomp. It's easy to throw when something goes wrong. You
True.
can give the top part of it to the dog when he wants a little bit. It's very multifaceted.
Perfect. Now, what's your favorite popsicle of all time?
Oh, favorite.
I'm setting you up here.
Dude, these are just absolute money. I'm a red-blooded American. I'm going to go with the American popsicle, the red, white, and blue. Give me the patriotism. Okay. Give me the love. Give me the shield. Anything the shield colored, I'm all about it.
Okay. I thought you'd say the orange creamsicle, but there you go.
Over 2 on Buccaneers layups on this podcast right now. I'm really bringing the vibe
to help
down.
you out, my man. Trying to help you out. What are you most grateful for at this time?
At this time, I'm going to go full cheese ball and say I'm most grateful for my wife. She is 7 months pregnant. She is absolutely killing it. She is powering herself through. I mean, just as somebody who already had the utmost, love and respect for her, just watching her tackle another challenge and watching me stand there going, how are you doing this? Is just every single day makes me very, very proud. And I'm all about it.
I love it. You got a lot of fun stuff ahead of you. I love it. Name some of the people that have just had a huge impact on you during your journey in this industry.
Oh, this industry, what an industry it is. And I waxed poetic about it earlier about how collaborative people are, and a lot of the networks that have been very kind to me. But there are some individuals I could definitely shout out. Love the Fantasy Alarm crew, Andrew Cooper, Howard Bender. A lot of people are there, Britt, Kev, they're doing great. The Football Guys crew, Dave Kluge, Jagger May, Jeff Bell, and the JWB crew, with Wyatt and Jake and Skylar and all those guys over there. And then some other great rational minds. Like, I love Frank Amaranti with the Game Day and Nick Scripp. A lot of these guys, what they all have in common for me personally, and why I've really enjoyed, having them, in my feed and interacting with them and chatting with them, is that they all have great processes and they're all very rational and they have a strong feel for vibes. So more often than not, that's going to point you in the right direction more than anything else in particular. So there's a real commonality in that, and I'm drawn to those kind of people. They're all very humble as well. So it's just a good group.
Yeah, it's a good list for sure. Now, There's a lot of people out there that do want to get more involved in content creation. You've obviously been doing your thing for a few years now. What advice do you have for people that are looking to get more involved in the industry?
I would say good content does not come first. I often see a lot of people say, if you're doing good work, the rest will follow. I think that's true, but not until you get to a certain milestone. You have to understand your lane and who else is in it. And you have to form a carpool with those people, especially in this industry where there are a lot of different people coming up at the same time. It doesn't matter what age you are. Every single year, there's a fresh crop. Some years more than most, but more than often than not, a lot of people are trying to find their way. And that's just like with any industry, right? But, when they say life is about who you know, that doesn't mean marrying into a family where someone is the director of content for Fantasy Pros. It means get out there. It means link up with these people that are in your niche, Twitter interactions, DMs, join a league with them. You would be shocked how easy it is to join a league with a lot of these people that are in the fantasy football community. It's all we ever want to do anyways. So sometimes saying things like connections feels a little cliche, but in this industry, truly, that's what we're all doing. We want to feature people on our shows that we have camaraderie with. We want to be in group chats with people that we enjoy chatting with. The good content is something you always want to be working on, but you have to have people who want to see it and who want, you could have a Pulitzer Prize winning article about a new fantasy football method that has a 100% success rate. And people, if you're rubbing them the wrong way, if you have the wrong attitude, nobody's going to want to read it. So invest in people would be my best advice.
Absolutely perfect advice. I love to hear it. Tell listeners and viewers where they can find your work.
So This Guy Sucks will be coming back in a couple weeks. I've been on a little sabbatical finding myself. I was doing an eat, pray, love with what I wanted to do with my fantasy football content for this offseason. But we're going to come back and reclaim it from the dynasty communists that rule this portion of the calendar. We'll be rolling out all kinds of different stuff, from my blind dates to fantasy roasts to a few other things I'm keeping under wraps. But, I've found a good way to, in this industry, you really need to be doing what you want. You need to be, like I said in that last little spiel, finding your lane. And I'm, even for somebody who's been doing it 30 years, somebody who's been doing it 2 years, you're still always expanding on that. You're a great example of that. You've definitely been, what the work you've been doing, and, especially this show in particular has been such an inspiration for the kind of content that I think needs to be more out there. So, just stealing from the best.
I appreciate that nod. I appreciate it so much. And it was thrilled to have you on here. Thank you so much for joining me, Chuck. Can't wait to see what's ahead for you in 2024. Looking at all the great things you got coming. And hopefully we'll see you in Canton at the Expo. But if not, obviously, best of luck moving forward with the little one. I love it. I'm excited for you, man.
Absolutely. We've got a future content creator in the oven right now. We'll be pushing out soon.
Sounds good, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.